Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? The Adam Squared Show brings you sports analysis of the rugby and the football game in Kenya. This is Vincent Adam bringing you the offside in the Adam Squared Show. So over the years, rugby has been termed as a game of the elites, and it is a game that is governed by laws and not rules, making it a sport different from the other ones that we see. So together with my sports analyst, we bring you answers to the questions that you have regarding this game rugby here in Kenya.
Hi, my name is Njuguna. I work for the Star newspaper. I also am a sports writer. I cover rugby. I cover also athletics and swimming and tennis.
So we take a look of the origin of rugby, how it is played in Kenya, how do we conduct it? Come.
Rugby is my forte, and I'm here just to enlighten you about how the game of rugby started in Kenya, who brought it, the various versions of the game, the 7s, the 15s, what are the rules and who are the dominant teams as we speak in 2022. The game was actually brought by the British colonialists in the last century. Was mostly played by the white players, mostly in the 1910s, 1920s. We had the Enterprise Cup coming on Her Majesty's ship in 1920. And that's the oldest cup competition we have in this country. But initially it was being played by the white men. Up all the way to even after we got independence, not so many black players were playing the game. In fact, the first black team, I think, was actually, if not Mean Machine, I think it was either Mwamba in the late 70s. That's when now black players now started getting a foothold into the game. Remember, rugby was a sport which was played mostly by the so-called Ivy League schools. I mean, the Lenanas, the Nairobi schools, Rift Valley Academy. These are the schools which were playing rugby in the 60s and 70s. Remember, these schools were schools of the white man. Actually, Lenana was called Duke of York. Nairobi School was called the Prince of Wales. So this is where there was a rivalry, and this is where a good chunk of the players who played for the Kenya team in the 70s and 80s used to come from, either from Lenana School or Nairobi School. A few other schools like Rift Valley Academy, St. Mary's School in Westlands were also playing the game. And the dominant team back then in the 70s and 80s was Nondis. Nondis was an all-white team, mostly expatriates who were seconded by the British government who were working in Kenya. Yeah, so Nondis were the team which were winning almost everything before the arrival of Mean Machine in the late 80s with the likes of Akina Edward Rombo and Eric Kibi. Then Mean Machine dominated, but Nondis came back to win it in 91. In the early 90s, they were still the dominant team all the way to 98. Is then now they started falling away, and that's when now we saw the emergence of teams like Impala, teams like Queens, teams like Ulinzi. Then KCB came along. Yeah. You've also asked, okay, rugby is played 7s and 15s. Now, 7-a-side rugby was started in Scotland, a place called Melrose. And it's mostly played by 7 players on each side with 7 minutes each half, with a break of 2 minutes at the break. Yeah, so you only play 7 players, and it has grown on to become one of the most successful sports in the world, because in 2016 the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, recommended that rugby be played at the Olympics, and we saw it at the Olympics in 2016 in Rio and 2020. It was there in the 1924, rugby was there at the sport in 1924 in the Paris Olympics, but was mostly being played as a 15-man game. But now at the Olympics, it's a 7-man game. On the 15th side, this is now how the game is played. This is now for the purists. Those guys who love rugby being played as 15s, because as 15s now, you play 15 players on each side, and then you play for 40 minutes each half. A squad normally has 23 players, and you have to know the laws of the game. Now,
we go for a short commercial break before coming to the answers that we have in the second session.
Now, rugby is all about laws, not rules. Laws of the game whereby you pass the ball behind, you cannot kick your opponent, you cannot pass the ball forward. There are lineouts, there are scrums, there are racks, there are kicks for goal, there are penalties. So rugby, is a game of where you use your hand and your leg, but you cannot pass the ball forward. You have to pass the ball behind. And of course, it has got many laws, by the way, involved. Now, the dominant team right now in Kenyan rugby for the last, let's say, 5-6 years has been KCB in the 15th game, because KCB have been winning the league for the last 4 years. But this year we saw the emergence of a new team. That's not really a new team, but Cabras ended KCB's dominance. So for the last 5-6 years, actually the two best teams in the country have been KCB and Cabras Sugar. Of course, I have to also give honorable mentions to Menengai Oilers, who are a very new team. Teams like Impala, teams like which other team? Harlequins. They have been there about, but right now the two best teams in the country are KCB and Cabras.
Now we have come to an end of our show. Join us as we get to the second analysis of rugby as a game internationally. How has the Shujaa performed in international games? This is Vincent Adam.